In our last episode of The Issues, we spoke to a group of mothers. They lost their children to gun violence. They had heartache, they expressed frustration. These were senseless tragedies. But they did it because they had a deep desire to call for change in our community. I'm Carol Daniel, and in today's episode, we're taking that conversation a step further. We're going to talk about safety. Joining us for an in-depth discussion with community leaders and law enforcement who are focused on real solutions as they work toward changing lives and laws so that St. Louis will be a safer place to live.
It's hard to imagine spending 17 years of your life behind bars, but that's how long Johnny Cotton served in prison, and he says he spent a lot of that time thinking about what got him there.
So I was regretting about everything I did and everything that went wrong, and where did I go wrong in life, and how did I get here? And basically it was money. It was not having a job.
The 48-year-old says his life began to spiral out of control right after high school. His mother was an alcoholic. His father was incarcerated. Reality hit hard. And with no job and no education, like so many others, Johnny turned to the streets.
I was addicted to selling.
Selling and doing illegal drugs caught up with Johnny in 2002. That's when he was convicted of possession with intent to distribute crack cocaine and on firearm charges. The judge gave him 30 years. Then hope would come in the form of President Barack Obama in January of 2017. The president commuted Cotton's sentence along with 329 others on his last day in office.
It was just tears, it wasn't no feelings, it just was tears, I shedded a tear, shedded a tear there.
His new life outside prison doors would be even harder this time around. Employment, education, housing, and voting are often denied to people with prison records. The hurdles were much bigger than he expected. That is, until he located the office of the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis after seeing a sign for their Save Our Sons program. Workers welcomed him with open arms, gave him employment information, and even provided him with a business suit. Thanks to Save Our Sons, Cotton was hired on the spot at a laboratory. He's also in school to become a licensed barber. Recently, Cotton returned to his old neighborhood. Taking in all the positive changes inspires him to share what he has learned over the years and give back to the community that raised him.
I would like to come back and just be a prime example, be a good example, just be that person that I know I can be. I'm just happy I got my life.
Johnny's story is a prime example of how many St. Louis organizations are addressing the issue of violence from many angles. Joining me now, Tydrell Stevens, the coordinator of the Urban League's Save Our Sons program, Lieutenant Colonel Rochelle Jones, and Detective Artie Shaw, both with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. They're going to talk about their boots-on-the-ground approach to getting out in the community with programs like the Police Athletic League. Thank you all for joining me tonight. So Tydrell, let's start with you, because with the history that you have, to then turn around and help children now, tell me about the decision that you made to go into this field of work in the first place.
Well, for myself, the decision was fairly easy. Me growing up here in the city of St. Louis, knowing both sides of the city, all parts from the north side to the south side, even to the west side of St. Louis, and knowing some of the problems that exist and seeing it, and in some parts, being apart by just growing up in the same neighborhoods, it was easy for me to know I needed to take my skills and bring it to this level of work.
Can you give us a sense of how the program works and the change you've already seen?
Mm-hmm. So the program, what it is, a 4-week program. We're a workforce development program. And we train guys on how to get a job, how to keep a job, how to get promoted, and how to remain marketable. And that program is for 4 weeks. And within these 4 weeks, we teach them life skills and soft skills. And one being the main thing is the life skills. And that's what a lot of brothers don't have to get to the next level. They need more training on their life skills.
And tell me your reaction to seeing young men who look like you getting an education, really. How does that make you feel?
It's unbelievable to see a man walk through our doors and really having no sense of hope, not really having family members that are really looking after them as much as they used to, because a lot of times, a lot of our brothers are making some bad decisions, which cause them to kind of have a lot of doors shut. So coming to us is really their last resort. They're like, I don't have anything else to do. I'm gonna come in here. I heard about this program, and hopefully I can get some help. And to see them come in, be attentive in the class, come daily, and then to get a job, and to see them come in with frowns on their faces and the smiles that they have after they get a job and during their graduations, and then seeing their families be excited for them. Mothers coming to graduations and like, hey, my son didn't even graduate from high school. So it was their opportunity to see their son graduate and get a certificate.
I have to say that I was kind of fanning out when I met our next guest, because I have watched her on television. She is an ever-present figure. Sadly, when there are crime scenes, hers is a face you see and a voice you hear. But I want to ask you, Lieutenant Colonel Jones, how did you decide to become a police officer in the first place? You told me that this is the only job you've ever had, the only job you ever wanted, you said.
Yes, it's the only job I ever wanted. I grew up in North City, the Walnut Park area. And in growing up in that area, it was rough and tumble. And when the police responded, they were always white and male. I never saw women, and I never saw a lot of black officers. And that piqued my interest as a child. And I just kept that interest through grade school and high school and college, and I became a police officer with the city of St. Louis.
The sad reality is now you do see black officers, but the sad reality is you see a lot of black suspects. What is it like out there?
What I try to do is set a good example. And in talking to them, and I tell them that, hey, I grew up in Walnut Park. Because a lot of times when they see me and they say, well, you're a police officer, you're a lieutenant colonel, where did you grow up? And I tell them, hey, I grew up in Walnut Park, and you can do the same thing that I'm doing if you go to school or get a trade or apply yourself.
And Detective Shaw, we hear a lot in the news side of it that, I mean, you're working a crime, that neighbors don't want to talk about it. It's the snitching issue. What is it like for you out there trying to solve this crime and make St. Louis a safer place, trying to solve crimes?
Yeah, that's a big issue right there, because, you know, a lot of people preach, don't snitch, don't talk to the police. But when you see a crime, you need to report that crime, because if it was your family member, you'll want somebody to tell what happened. And if you tell them what happened, that ain't snitching. You just tell them what you seen, and that's what needs to be done. That stop snitching need to go away.
Why do you think that we hear a lot that people are afraid to come forward, that people don't trust the police? Why are more people not giving information? And we know that people do, but...
Well, you got people in the neighborhood that kind of bully other people also, and you make other people scared to even talk to the police. And then you have, you know, some issues with the police that we didn't have that make people afraid to talk to the police at the same time. But it is okay to trust the police when you're talking to them at that time.
You do more than just, you know, work as a detective. I mean, you are playing with kids, you are in the community. I'm not sure if you're playing basketball. That's what I heard. Is that for real? And so I see the smile on his face. You know, so tell me about the decision-making process that you went through to say, I've got to do more than just solve crimes and be a detective, but I've got to get into the community in a different way.
Well, being on the department for 27 years, and it's like this. I love what I do. I love working with these kids and going to different communities, but I get down on their level. And I just don't talk to kids, I listen also, but I get down there and play basketball against them. And part of the PAL program is, hey, we mentor kids, we coach kids, we put on different programs, we do fundraisers to take kids to different basketball programs all through the city. We go to Herbert Hoover and play, and that's all from the fundraisers that we get. And we also dress the kids in uniforms so they can feel good about themselves.
And could this happen without the help of Better Family Life and the Urban League Save Our Sons program, or does that make it easier to have that kind of support between organizations?
No, the Better Family Life and his program is all about the same thing, because he's trying to save kids out there, and we're doing the same thing. So I think it's all in one, and we all need to get together, because if we focusing on these kids and saving these kids, because there's a lot of young men getting hurt out there. Not only young men. If you look at the news, you see a lot of young women getting hurt out there. You know what I'm saying? So what he's preaching is the same thing that I'm preaching. It's all about these kids. And just because I'm a police officer, I spend a lot of time, and I volunteer my time to go down here to the Youth and Family Center. I put a lot of hours down there, but it's to focus on those kids.
And so the mothers had some things to say that were good and that were not so positive. And I'm curious what you think is working and what, in a perfect world, you would need to make it work better to save even more lives. We'll talk about that as well. And we're talking about great programs to help our youth really believe in themselves and have the support that they need so they don't go down the wrong path. When we come back, we're going to talk more to our officers about their boots on the ground approach to reducing violence in the community. Please stay with us.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look! Welcome back as we continue this important conversation about early intervention to help decrease violence in our community. I'm Carol Daniel. So glad you're with us. We continue our conversation. Detective Artie Shaw, as I introduced him earlier with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, we were talking about you actually playing basketball with the kids, and it's a part of the Police Athletic League, and you actually do, you're like, are you dunking on these children? I want to know that. Are you really? You out there doing that?
No, my dunking days is over with.
But talk to me about how it makes a difference.
Okay, it's this way. I got a program that just started on Monday where I got officers volunteering their time to come down to the Youth and Family Center and mentor kids, okay? But this time, we're not telling the kids that they're officers. They just going in there, intermingling with the kids, having fun with the kids. And if you can see the smile on the kids' faces right now, they don't even know who they're working with. But the officers are playing basketball with them. They take them upstairs and they mentoring them, showing them life skills, how to shake a man's hand and look them in the eyes, helping them with their homework. That's what they did today. But on Friday, it's going to be revealed. The officer's going to come in because we're having the kids a banquet in their uniforms. And they're going to realize all week long that they've been dealing with an officer. And it's just teaching them, hey, if we can get along all week long, that you didn't know I was a police officer. Now that you know I'm a police officer, we definitely can get along.
And how do they come to be a part of the program, and what kind of age are we talking about?
We got the kids coming in from age 6 to 15. Females and males. We from the PAL program that helped me out with this, that partnered up with the Youth and Family Center. We purchased suits for each kid. For the males, from the suit to the shoes. The female was able to get a dress from Dillard's, Milano's Men's Wear, helped me out with the suits for the kids. So they'll wear their suits on Friday. We got a banquet. the kids are going to serve their parents on that night. And the officers are showing them how to serve food during the week, but they'll be able to serve food along with the officers helping them out, standing side by side with these kids this week.
Colonel Jones, people who are seeing this, who will talk about this, will think about crime in the city, and they may say, okay, he's playing basketball and he's working with the Urban League Save Our Sons, but it just doesn't seem like it is making a difference. Do you think it is making a difference, and what do you say to those people?
I would say that it does make a difference, and the earlier you start with a child, male or female, with positive things, the better off you are. The earlier you teach them life skills or just conflict resolution, because you'll see little kids in the, fighting. That's not a way to resolve conflict. And it just goes on into your teen years, and instead of fighting, you got a gun or a knife and you're doing something different. So I think the early intervention with young children is very important.
Now that we talked about the Police Athletic League, the PAL program, right. What is the Blue PALS program that you have unfolded as well?
Sure, that's a subsection of the PAL program, and what that is, it's a pen pal, okay? We have more than 30 officers that for the past several weeks we have been writing the children from the KIP Inspire Academy School. They're young school children, and we just correspond back and forth. They ask you all types of questions like, what do I like for fun? What type of telephone do I like? And this Friday, we're going to have what we call an ice cream social, where we will actually have the opportunity to meet the child and just sit there and just talk, just talk with them. And they'll be able to see that, okay, I was writing back and forth to a police officer, but they're human, just right. Like I am, and I like dogs because I have a female. She likes dogs. She likes skating. I like dogs. I'm not skating. Now, back in the day I did, I could skate, but not now. But just I like that people know that as police officers, we still are human beings at the end of the day. And we don't mean them any harm.
And Tydrell, with the Save Our Sons program, are you finding that young people are yearning to be in the situation like that, in a structured situation, or not?
Oh, they love it. For one of the reasons, they get a chance to really express how they feel amongst other brothers that sometimes go through similar situations. And the class could be a mixture of a guy that could have been an ex-felon to a guy that has a college degree that just doesn't know how to get a job. And so they really yearn for it, because you got to imagine they go from least likely being hired as an African-American male to actually being a top candidate for a job due to the program, because HR managers come into the program to speak to them after the third day. So after the third day, there's HR managers in the class daily.
So before we go, I want each of you to tell me what is not working and what you need to further reduce violence in the city of St. Louis, specifically with our young men. What don't you have that you need, Detective Shaw?
Well, getting back to officers just getting in the community and talking to the residents and just knocking on the door, and maybe you just say hello and I'm in your neighborhood today and you can see me, instead of just not passing through and not stopping at all. I think some people just want to say, hey, that car been sitting out there for 5 days. Right. And once you listen to them and once you just do a little bit something for them, I think they'd be satisfied, instead of us just making that pass through and don't pay attention to
I feel like you are more of a part of the community.
Funding for programs, like the program that Detective Shaw is undertaken, and I think the community engagement, working together, because as a police agency, we cannot do it alone.
You're not parents.
Right, we're not.
That's a part of this, I imagine, as well. It is needed.
Right, it is needed, and some of the parents don't know how to be parents. they need training in that, and that's where the Urban League and Better Family Life come in, but we have to do it together, not separately. We have to work together with the agencies and with the community and with funding.
Tydrell, what don't you have that you need? Parental involvement is one thing, funding is another. What don't you have at Save Our Sons that you need to save more lives and save more sons?
Right now, I would say more locations and more ability to get out and reach more in the community. We do have staff members that go out in terms of outreach, events, and things of that nature to continue to bring guys in. But I would say the staff, because economic stability is really what our community needs. When we look at North St. Louis, we have pockets that poverty level is very high, and you have unemployment rates as high as 36% in just a small neighborhood. So when you have that mixed in with poverty, we have to make sure we can get out and touch individuals and let them know that there are opportunities available for them.
I wanted to bring back the previous discussion we had with the mothers who, some of them felt, after my son was gone, I didn't hear from the detective again. I had to call him. Is there an understanding about the process of solving a crime that they don't understand, that we can help them to understand? They were very frustrated, Detective. That's something that I think you would speak to.
The police don't care. That's not the fact, because every police officer got a job to do, and the parent, they grieving about their son, and which we all would, even if it was my son. But it takes a process for a detective to investigate a case, and he may be following different leads. Sometimes that lead may get cold and he had to start over again, but it's never a situation where he just saying, I'm not gonna call this person back, because they work daily. And then, sometimes the homicides happen daily in St. Louis, and it's always another case, and the detectives have to go out there and follow up on another one, but they do jump back on there, and they got witness to the interview, and it's just, sometimes it just takes a little while, but they just have to be patient.
And then I'd like to piggyback on that. Sometimes there is a breakdown in communication on both sides, with police officers and with citizens. Sometimes a citizen will have several family members calling and getting all different types of information. At one point in my career, I was the homicide commander, and when those sorts of things came to my attention, we would meet, we would talk with the family, and I would stress to the family, we need to have one or maybe 2 point people, that's the person that we talk to make sure that the information flows, because information goes 2 ways. Sometimes the family has information that we don't have as police officers, but I have seen communication break down on both parties' parts.
Well, I can't begin to imagine how difficult your jobs are, but I do hear the hope in what you are trying to do to make the city a safer place. So we really thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you so much for your dedication to St. Louis, as well as to all of our citizens. So we've discussed a lot of solutions to thwarting violence, but before we go, just one last thing to our guests tonight. We want to get some thoughts about why our city seems to be facing perhaps, and we talked about this off camera, we talked about a 13-year-old who's accused of carjacking. Yes. What is it about carjacking, Detective Shaw? What is it about that particular crime that we know about? Robberies may be down, homicides may be down, and then carjackings go up. What do we know about the cause of carjackings?
A lot of the carjacking with these newer cars, now you see these kids want these newer cars, but you can't break them down and steal them like the old cars you used to steal, and you got to have a key fob. If they don't have that key fob, they go out here and carjack the people. They point a gun at them and demand them to get out the car at this point. So
are they just? Do they just want to ride from A to B, or is it joy riding? What do we understand about the feelings behind why someone involves in a carjacking? Do we even know?
I believe it's all of it. They a combination of joy riding, or if you take somebody's car, you may go out and do a robbery, okay. Or you may just do a drive-by shooting. It's not their car, so they don't care.
Right. It's a combination.
A combination of all of that.
of
And
all
so
of that.
it's like we're seeing younger, younger carjackers as well.
Yes.
And we don't want to put any, lay blame, but a 13-year-old who's out there doing something, mothers and fathers are working 2 and 3 jobs. We know that is the case around the country.
Right, it is. And a lot of times, especially in the wintertime, when people are starting their cars and leaving them running and leaving,
Right.
the kids will take advantage of that. They joyride, they steal the cars to rob. It's a combination.
And Tydrell, I don't know that if kids coming in to save our sons at the Urban League are, telling you what they've done and why, and if that's not the case, I understand, but do we ever hear from kids who may say, so-and-so hired me? I mean, is that happening? We know that there are cars that are broken down and sold for parts all over the country. St. Louis is no different. Do we know that children are, and they're children to me, is that a part of what is going on here as well? That older people are hiring kids to steal cars? Is that happening?
That's not been my experience.
Okay.
Has it been your
No,
experience?
not at all.
No.
Okay.
I haven't heard it.
No.
That's a rumor on the street that we are
Yeah.
squashing
Yeah, no.
right here and right now.
No, I've not heard that. That's not been my experience.
Thank you again. Thank you again. I would love to have another whole hour with you talking about, how you became a detective and how is your jump shot. I want to know that. I want to know that.
Right.
And are more women coming into the department because they see you on television? Have you inspired that? And I have sons. Thank you, Tydrell, for trying to save our sons. We thank you for that. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to delve further into this issue as well as others, including transportation concerns, on our next episode of The Issues. Once again, thank you to our guests for being with us tonight. We hope that they've shared insight. I know I have learned a great deal. You can join the discussion too. Be sure to check us out online and at Facebook. We everywhere. YouTube, Twitter, and on the gram, as the kids say, Instagram. And don't forget to download the STL TV app for sure. That is it for this episode of The Issues, but keep it right here on STL TV and Experience St. Louis.